to another video with I Learn Engineering. My name is Leslie. Today we're going to look at Agile Project Management and what that is. So whenever we're creating software, we'll have a project that will tell us how we're going to do the thing. And there's different types of project management or project methodologies that we can use. And one of those is Agile. It's the most popular that's out there at the moment, and that's why we're gonna talk about it. So we used to have something called waterfall, and I'll just give you the background to this to tell you then how Agile came into being, basically. So with waterfall, if you think about a waterfall, it just goes one way, right? It doesn't go back up. So we have these stages in any kind of software development. We have the stage where we gather the requirements from the customer. What do you need? What do you want your software to do? Then we go through and design everything. So how should it work? And then we create it. So we call that implementation. And then we'll test it to make sure it works. And sometimes the implementation and the testing go hand in hand, and sometimes they don't. And then we basically deploy it. We give it out to the client and they can use it, and then we'll have something called maintenance where we keep improving it. Maybe the client comes up with new things that they want, or bugs have been found that need fixed, or technology has changed and we need to change the way our program works, things like that. But with a waterfall, everything goes this way, and each stage is done one after the other. So they do all the requirements, and then do all the design, and then do all the implementation, and then do all the testing, and then all the deployment, and then all the maintenance. And that's fine. That's how everything used to work, and that was fine in a way. But say we get down to the testing phase or the implementation phase, and the client says, I've changed my mind, I want to add in a new requirement. We can't do that with waterfall. It's basically we do it in this order, and then that's it. You would have to wait to the next cycle, so we can then go back up to the start and look at new requirements and do the design and implementation and all of that. And that's fine, and that worked for a while, and then things changed, technology advanced, the types of software we're creating changed, and that didn't work anymore. So people came up with Agile, and Agile is what we call iterative. And what that means is that we do things in iterations, we do things in stages. So these steps are continually happening, not necessarily the maintenance and things like that, but these steps are continually happening in like a cycle, like a circle. So we have what we call sprints with Agile. And a sprint is time bound. So it's a specific period of time. It's normally 2 to 4 weeks with most companies. And during that time, we have got some requirements from the client. We are going to plan out how we're going to do that. So we've done a bit of design. We've figured out what technology we're using, maybe what programming language we're using, if we're buying software in that we're going to tweak, if we're writing it from scratch, if it's been stored on the cloud, any of that. So we've done all that side of things. We've got some requirements from the client. We've done our design. During our sprint, we plan out at the very start how many requirements are we going to fit into the sprint. So during the design phase, the project manager will work out for each requirement how long that would take. Does it take a day? Does it take 2 days? Does it take 2 weeks? Can we break it down into smaller requirements? Like, what does that look like? And then at the start of a sprint, we'll have a sprint planning session, and we'll look at how many people are in the team, what is their skill set, which requirements are the highest priority for the client at this point. Okay, we're going to do these 3 during the sprint. We work on only those requirements. We do our development and our testing. So we implement and test at the same time. And then by the end of that sprint, we should have a little component that we could give to the client and say, hey, there you go. So if we think of a say we think of a racing game, okay, like some kind of on a console, for example, maybe car racing, right? Just for the simplicity here. So our first sprint, maybe we create the login, and at the end of sprint one, you could give that to someone and they could log in. And then for our second sprint, we create the drivers. You get to pick your driver, and by the end of that sprint, then someone can log in and pick their driver. And then sprint three, we create the ability to pick a different car. So now, by the end of sprint three, you can log in, pick your driver, pick your car. Sprint four might be creating a certain type of racetrack. Sprint five might be a different racetrack. Sprint six might be a different, the point system and so on. So we slowly build up the software in these little chunks, in these iterations that are called sprints. And that's how Agile works. So what happens if we've done 3 sprints and in our racing game we've got the login, we've got the ability to pick a driver, and we've got the ability to pick a car. And maybe we've done 4 sprints and we've got a racetrack. And then the client comes along and they say, hey, do you know what? I've had a really good idea. I'd like people to be able to race helicopters as well. Well, we can add that requirement in for the next sprint. We can change the requirements. We can change the priority of the requirements as well. So what order they go in, how important they are for the client. And the client changes their mind potentially. They think something's super important, and then a bit down the line they go, actually I'd like to swap, and that's not important for us anymore. We can do that with Agile. It's really, really flexible. There are a lot of companies that use Agile in different ways, but this is the beauty of it, that we can use it in different ways. We can be flexible with the client. We can give them something that they can use every single time, every single sprint. And at the end of each sprint, we also have something that we call a sprint retrospective. And we basically look at that sprint and say, what did we do well and what did we not? How can we improve? So we're continually learning and improving as well. So that is the overall gist of Agile Project Management. Now, there are a few different types of Agile. There is one called Kanban, and it's very visual. So if you think about, I don't know if any of you have ever used like a Trello board or something like that. If you have, this'll make a lot of sense. But if you think of a board, so we have a couple of columns in our board. So we have, these are the list of things that we're going to work on, and each one is a ticket, like a little card. So it literally looks like a little card like this, and this is an item that we're going to work on. So this is our list. I'll just say list. And then if we have something that's being worked on in here, I'll just put TD, to do. We might have in this sprint, we're going to do this card. We're going to do this card, and we're going to do this card. So we've picked 3 off our list. And then maybe during the sprint, it's in progress, right? So we physically move those little cards from one column to the next. And then maybe we're testing some things. So now this one here is now in test, so it gets moved over to test, and so on. And then when they're done, we move them over to done and things like that. So it's a very visual way of showing exactly what stage everything is at. It's really good for bigger projects or big teams with lots of different projects and things like that. It gives us a really good way of visualizing things. And then we have something called Scrum. Scrum is almost like, in a way, it's almost like a halfway house between waterfall and Agile. We have the flexibility of Agile, we have the iterativeness of Agile, but we have very defined roles in Scrum. So we have certain size of teams. We have a Scrum Master who organises things. We have specific times for our sprints. We always do sprint planning on a certain day. We always do a retrospective on a certain day. We have stand up every day so we can see what everyone's doing. So every morning everyone will come around and say, this is what I did yesterday, this is what I'm planning on doing today, and this is anything that's going to potentially hold me up. So these are the kind of defined rules about that with Scrum. Um, so it's almost like the structure of waterfall with the flexibility of Agile. Um, so you might find some companies will use Kanban version of Agile. Some companies will use a Scrum version of Agile. Some companies will use a combination as well. And that's part of the beauty. You can do whatever way you want. Um, but Agile is super iterative and super flexible. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of a taste of Agile and what it does, what it's used for, and all of that kind of thing. We are going to have another video shortly about what it is to be Agile versus doing Agile. Hopefully you'll tune in for that one as well. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video.